Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the next London FP&A Circle. Obviously, it's afternoon in the UK, but today we have representatives from 28 other countries and from different continents as well. Today, we are going to talk about FP&A integration, integrated FP&A, what it is and how to get there. And I'm very happy that we have this subject. It's so much connected to the last subject that we had in London in April. Do you remember we were talking about strategy execution gap? So this is another subject that is so much connected and much wider. FP&A Circle is the subset of London FP&A board. I want to explain the difference. The difference is noticeable when we have our face-to-face meetings. And we started London FP&A Circle here in the UK for the reason that we saw that FP&A board can accommodate only 20, 25, 30 senior practitioners, but we saw a lot of demand. And it was the platform for us to share the insights from London FP&A board. And normally we had many people in the meeting room. And those are the subjects. And as you can see, those were face-to-face meetings, and the last 3 meetings were face-to-face, were digital. So we continue to travel digitally, but from next year, we will restart our London FP&A Circle. What is the subject for today? The subject is what is FP&A integration and how to get there, how to harmonize organizational planning processes. This is our agenda. We will look at the definitions and the key concepts. Then we will look at 2 very interesting case studies, one from Philip Morris company and another one at Heisen case study. And then, of course, we will talk about how technology can facilitate the integration. We will have conclusion and recommendations and Q&A session. This is the time now to introduce our panelists, and I would like to ask our panelists to switch on their cameras. Hello, everyone, and welcome. You can see that we have very international panel. So both of me and Oliver are from the UK, but we have 2 guests, one from Switzerland and one from South America, Brazil. Adam, let us start from you. Just a quick background. Today, Adam is going to share the case study of his company on the first steps of integrated business planning. Adam is head of FP&A at Philip Morris International, a member of our Geneva FP&A board, more than 15 years of experience in FP&A and many other areas of finance. He is acting as a global head of finance transformation right now, and he has expertise, and the area of interest is agile and waterfall methods, and also digital transformation methods for finance. Adam, we are happy to have you here. Welcome. Welcome to London FP&A Circle.
Thank you, Larissa.
Let us move on, and we have our guest from South America. Demetria Magalhães, pronunciation Magalhães, who is finance director at Heisen, the leading company in Brazil. But actually, Demetria, we met each other in Switzerland some time ago, where you were working also at senior finance position. So you are a former Geneva FP&A board member, but you're based in Brazil right now. Almost 20 years of experience in FP&A, risk management and strategy, valuations, and many other subjects. You have a very wide experience in leading and developing FP&A teams. And today, your presentation, this is the case study of Heisen IPO and how FP&A teams supported this. And of course, expertise in IPO and valuations. Demetria, welcome to London FP&A Circle.
Thank you very much, Larissa. A pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. And the last speaker is Oliver Sullivan. You met Oliver already at the last meeting and at the previous ones. Very experienced FP&A trend speaker, over 20 years of cross-vertical experience in different aspects of FP&A transformation. And he's working in a range of FP&A and business intelligence platforms, a lot of experience at different FP&A tools. You have understanding in all areas of organizational analytical journey, and it goes from solution consulting and implementation and guidance. And of course, the area of special interest is how modern technology can help to unify the planning process. Oliver, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure as always to be here.
Thank you so much, panelists. So I have just a few introductory slides, so I would like to ask you to switch your cameras, and we are moving on. Thank you. Just a little bit about my experience and as a facilitator and the company that I'm heading. Larissa Melnichuk, Managing Director at FP&A Trends Group and International FP&A Board, former practitioner, a lot of experience and a lot of passion for FP&A as a practitioner as well. So after I left the corporate world, I decided to have this FP&A journey. So we opened FP&A board in 27 cities, 16 countries, 4 continents. And at the moment, we are doing a lot of research and a lot of educational programs. And also we started to do some strategic advisory on your demand. About this FP&A circle. So it would be 90 minutes webinar, but we try to make it as interactive as possible. There will be 4 polling questions on different webinar subjects. Please, if you can vote. It would be an interactive session, and you can start to send your questions straight away when you see the first presentation via your chat box. It's very easy to do. You can connect directly with all of us, of course, after the meeting through LinkedIn. Presentation is available right now in handouts, and you can see this on your screen. And you will receive the recording of this session and copy of this presentation within 2 days after this meeting. After the session, there will be the survey, and we wanted to ask you to stay with us and to share. Before we start, we would like to say thank you so much to our technology sponsor, Unit 4. This is a global leader in enterprise cloud software for people-centric organization. And it's not only a flexible FP&A solution, but also ERP and HCM systems as well. Thank you so much, Unit 4. I have a quick introductory presentation just to set up the tone of these meetings with some of the definitions and to answer the question what, why, and how in terms of FP&A integration. And before I start, I really would like to remind you this wonderful definition from one of the thought leaders and former CFO at Swiss Re, Gerhard Lochmann. We met in Switzerland some time ago. He gave this fantastic definition, which is very practical definition because Swiss Re use this in their company for FP&A. So FP&A, it's all about managing the value of the company. And managing the value in these 5 manners actually. It helps to understand the value. It helps to describe the business value through matrices and models. It helps to steer the value of the company through supporting decision-making process, to extract the value through telling the story, and of course reporting, communicating this to external stakeholders and to internal stakeholders as well. So it's all about the value. And this is the answer to question why we need integration. We need integration in order to manage the value of the company in all of those manners. And then I would like to remind you the definition of what is integrated FP&A. Many of you had the terms integrated business planning. Very often vendors provide this, and for them it's sometimes only the platform, on one platform, and then you have integrated business planning. We discussed this subject in 16 countries and 27 cities around the globe. And this is the very, very good conclusion, what it is. So it's about harmonizing of your 3 planning processes, your strategic, financial, and operational. Harmonizing this from the cross-functional and bottom-up and top-down point of view. And the next question you're asking, and we are going to concentrate on this on all upcoming presentations, how how we can manage, how we can implement integrated FP&A. And those are 6 dimensions. So key drivers: a driver-based model, 3-way financial modeling when you use a profit and loss account, cash flow, balance sheet. Through integrated processes, it's also through integrated people, integrated platform, technology that connects all of this. So those are 6 dimensions, but in truly integrated company, there are more dimensions. Now, it's a quick feedback from you, because I would like to hear from you. I would like to hear what is happening in your world in terms of the integration. I'm starting the first polling question. I'm launching it, and I would like to ask you to vote as soon as you see the polling question. So the question is, and please start to vote: how would you describe the level of your FP&A integration? And select one of the following. Planning processes are not integrated at all. They integrated between finance and operational level. They integrated between finance and strategy, or they fully integrated. I can see that 50% of you voted. Please continue to vote. What are your processes? Not integrated at all, integrated only between finance and operational level, between finance and strategy, fully integrated. So more than 70% voted. Thank you. Just a few seconds, I'm closing the poll and I'm sharing the results with everyone. And I would like to ask our panelists, to comment on this. So first of all, I would like to ask you, Adam, to comment. So you can see that 22% of those people who are with us today, planning processes are not integrated. 46% integrated only between finance and operational level. 46% between finance and operational, 24% between finance and strategy, and 8% fully integrated. So what do you think?
Look, to be honest, I think that was the answer I kind of expected, more or less, looking at the distribution. I see there is more and more interest in integration, and usually the operations, the supply chain processes are the first one, then strategy follows, and then we see also some companies already embarking on the integrated process. I think that was kind of in line with the expectations.
Thank you. And Demetria, what would be your commentary on this result of the first polling question?
I agree with Adam. So the distribution does not surprise me. I was expecting something like that. A big challenge that many companies face is the integration between finance and operation with the strategy. I think that there's a lot of value when you manage to merge finance and business operational process and systems with the strategy of the company. So I know that's a challenge for a bunch of companies out there. It's surprising to see 8% fully integrated. I know it's a small percentage, but to be honest, I was expecting even less than that. So I think that's something that each company must pursue. There's a lot of value to be extracted with one of fully integrated FP&A.
Thank you so much for your commentaries. Thank you everyone for your vote. I'm hiding the results, and let us move on. So the first presentation, a case study, is about one aspect of integration, integrated processes. Adam, I would like to invite you to switch on your camera. And we are looking at the case study from Philip Morris, First Steps in Implemented Integrated Business Planning. Adam, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Larissa, and once again, pleasure being here. And what I wanted to share with you is our journey, our first steps that we're doing in terms of integrated business planning implementation. Now, if you please move to the next slide. First is why we are moving into integrated business planning. And if you look back at our company operations, I mean, we used to operate in a quite a stable environment with basically one product line, and the processes that we had were absolutely sufficient to run it perfectly. Now, what we see, and I guess we're not the only ones, we see that entering into a more multi-category business, where we see more and more volatility on the supply chain. And one thing all of you that operate in the electronic business, we have seen, for example, quite shortages in semiconductors lately. And then on top of that, we see that we have quite a few processes running in the company. We saw quite a big potential to putting it all together and having one process driving all the core company decisions. And the way how we would define the integrated business planning is really all functions. And here we're talking about finance, we're talking about supply chain, we're talking about commercial, we're talking also about other functions with directly, indirectly impacting that process, working together in one common cycle, in one common rhythm, to set directions for the next steps. Now, on the next slide, I can show you how we position the integrated business planning. And here, what we defined is so-called golden rules. So we defined 8 golden rules, which are crucial for the integrated business planning. First of all is to look at the demand monthly. And here what we try to do is to look at it together, all the functions together, looking at the demand plan, but also looking at it in the rolling cycles, right? So every single month we see how much we're going to sell. We work together to come up with a consensus model. And what we try to do, we try to push the horizon, which is the second golden rule, making it visible in the longer terms. Now, the third golden rule that we're putting is also to have an integrated planning calendar. So as you can imagine, each of the functions like finance, supply chain, commercial, marketing have their own plans. Now, what we try to establish is a mindset where that becomes one plan for the company. So we put together existing calendars, we try to reduce meetings that we have, and we also try to consolidate all the assumptions gathering that gives us ultimately also agility and a better response. Now the fourth point that we called gap is good. Now let me give you a bit of an explanation. So what we want to measure here is the gap between targets. So we're implementing a target setting process, which by definition is more top-down, more aggregated, saying these are the core business and financial KPIs that we want to achieve for the next cycle, and then we have it defined at the company level and also being cascaded to individual organizations. Now, having this target and having every month a demand plan, which is then also translated to financials, to maybe P&L, we can compare where we are versus where we want to be, and that creates a gap, which could be either favorable or unfavorable, depending on which cycle and which KPI you look at. And this looking at the gap regularly creates, as we call, a healthy tension to act on the gap closure. So coming up with initiatives, how to reach the targets that we want to set, and how to work together to get there. Now the fifth golden rule that we have here is the monthly cadence. So what we mean here is to establish a rhythm. So establish a rhythm at every local organization to have a set of meetings happening every month. And here it's kind of an agile ceremony that we implement at the planning processes, and is to put it as part of, make it as being in the blood of the company to review monthly the demand, the supply, the overall business results, and to have it incorporated in the results. And I'll show you later on how that works. Now, on the sixth golden rule, we have forecast bias measurement, and I must say our colleagues more from operations, from supply chain, are more used to looking at bias, as we in finance we're more looking at forecast accuracy. Now, bias for us is a measure telling us, are we over or under forecasting, right? And it's about capturing any systematic influence of the forecasting process that we can identify, and if we see this is a tendency that continues for a while, to address that. And what we plan to do as well is to make this KPI for a bias part of the management targets. Now, the 7 golden rule that we have here is to have a visibility of our inventory end-to-end. And here we are not talking only of the inventory that we have in our books, we're talking also about the inventory of our distributors, of our of the entire supply chain, basically. So the more we can see that, the better we can plan our demand, the better we can predict any changes. And last but not least, in the rule number 8, we're talking about the leadership-driven model. So that's a process that we were reinforcing from the top, from the corporate leadership, but also individual geography leadership, to ensure that this is being followed by all levels of the organization, right? And if you move to the next slide, you will see also how we position the integrated business planning, and this is a good link to what Larissa was showing you previously, right? Because we have first the strategic planning processes, right? Which in our case are more long term. We're talking about 3 to 5 year horizon. We review it at least every half year, and this is more our really long term objectives where we want to be. Now, moving to the right, you have a process which is budgeting that we are converting to more a target setting, so making it much more lean and having its top down, creating targets for various sets of the organization, right? And this is where we see also efficiency in the process, instead of having a huge bottom up budgeting, to focus more on top down targets. And then we move to the integrated business planning, which is this monthly rhythm where you go bottom up, you check your demands, you check your supply, you compare versus your target, and you always look at gaps to see where you are versus where you should be. And moving to the right, you have the operations processes, which are more scheduling, daily tasks, and yeah, these are usually that one we kept as they were, but it's just to show you where we position the integrated business planning, right? Now, if you're interested on the rhythm, so on the next slide, I can show you an example of a rhythm that we have. So every month the plan is to look first at the new products, at the portfolio which is coming, any commercial initiative. Now, based on that, we can look at our demand, which is unconstrained, so how much we would sell if we would have unlimited capacity. Then we look at the supply, so if there's any constraint, any limitation, we reflect that, and we kind of record both just to know what is also the driver of not having the full demand, so we can address it long term. And then knowing how much we can sell, we translated it also to financials. So this is where we do a cash up, a calculation of all the core financial results, and we review it on a monthly basis with local heads of each location, and then we roll it up to the corporate level, right? So that's the rhythm that we are driving. We're piloting it, just to be very transparent. We're piloting it in a couple of our core locations, but after gathering all the learnings, we would like to further scale it up, right? Now, if you move to the next slide, you will see also what kind of learnings we managed to gather, right? So if you look at the integrated business planning, I mean, the approach we took is to focus on the process first, right? So we didn't want to jump on a huge system implementation without knowing that the process we're putting in place works, and this is where we still are. We're still learning, we're still gathering insights, and gradually we'll also implement system solutions to work with that. Now, we see that the mindset changes is really fundamental. So we need to switch gears, to stop mixing kind of commitments with estimates, to try to really work in a more agile mode and focus more on gap closure rather than looking back and trying to understand why things happen, right? So now we see that a lot of local meetings can be streamlined, some of them eliminated. And yeah, we see a big potential on focusing on gap closing and having it to catalyze the optimization of the process. And what we'll do next, we'll continue piloting it, then we'll review the bias that we have, the influence, and then also gradually scale up this this approach to any new locations, right? We're still in the pilot mode. And maybe as a closing sentence, I'll say for all of you that they want to go to IBP, I would say our advice would be ensure you have management support, be ready to be agile, to adjust as you go, and really focus on the processes. And I think everything else should gradually follow. Now, thank you for you, and I'll give back the voice to Larissa.
Adam, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this excellent presentation and for sharing with us your 8 golden rules of integrated planning that is relevant for your company. I'm sure that it could be relevant for many organizations. I would like to ask all our panelists to switch on the cameras, and just a quick discussion before we go to the next presentation. Demetria, any commentaries, any experiences similar to this?
No, absolutely, Larissa. Actually, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. First, Adam, great presentation. Thank you very much for that. I think that something that I'd like to highlight, which I really appreciate from your journey, is the focus that you guys put on the process. There's a lot of company, and don't take me wrong, I mean, technology and systems are critical for integrated FP&A model, for an integrated FP&A system. But I see a lot of companies that first pursue a system without having the process well established, well defined. And I think the journey that Philip Morris is doing, and several other companies do, by focusing on people and process and make sure it's robust enough before implementing technology is great. So thank you very much. Congratulations for the presentation and the journey that you guys are having.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oliver, what would be your commentary?
I was not something. I largely agree with everything that everybody said so far. Yeah, firstly, Adam, thank you for the fantastic presentation. I have more of a question, if that's all right, because yeah, you know, we're all going to be speaking today about unification of the process, unification of people, and so on and so. But you bring up quite an interesting thing, the challenge of sort of user adoption or the mindset, getting people to align behind the idea. I just wonder if maybe we could 30 seconds or something. How did you approach that challenge?
Yeah, look, what we addressed first is to have the senior management sponsorship. So we're really talking about the top level of the company, the C-level, which advocate the project, which are behind the project, and on various occasions are there with us. In the steering committee of that project, we also engage the local management from the markets where we're piloting the solution. And what we do as well is try to speak to the interests, right? To see how we can better get the process. It doesn't mean, of course, that we don't have people that don't fully, you know, are supporting the objectives, but I think it's important to highlight the benefits and go through this journey together, but also listen to any challenges and adapt, right? So.
Interesting. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, Adam, once again for your excellent presentation. A great message to us. Look at your process before implementing the system. And actually, just recently, I was talking to global FP&A director of one very well-known company that just implemented integrated system, and we were discussing why it doesn't work, and the reason was exactly this purpose. So the old process was implemented through this new system, and actually it's even enhanced some of the inefficiencies. So thank you so much. I would like to ask now our participants to answer, to vote, and to answer some of the polling questions. So let us see what is happening. Let us switch off the cameras, and I'm starting the next polling question. And as soon as you see it, if you can start voting, please. What is the most important factor to further advance your FP&A integration in case of your company? So what is the one most important one? Is it technology? Is it leadership support? Is it skills and competencies in your finance department? Or is it the process of harmonizing your organizational processes? We know that all of them are important, but in terms of your organization, in case of your organization, what is the one the most important that really will move your company to the next level? So please continue to vote. I can see that more than 70% voted, just a few seconds, and I'm closing the poll and I'm sharing the results with everyone. Okay, so very interesting results, actually. So yes, harmonizing organizational processes, 56% of voters, they thought that is the most important factor. The next important is technology, it's 23%. And then both 10% for leadership support and for skills and competencies. Okay, Adam, what would be your take on this?
Yeah, look, I mean, I hope I didn't influence the answer by the presentation, but look, that's the motto we took, is that I think process goes first. Technology is also very important, same as leadership support and building the competencies. But yeah, if you don't get the process right, if you don't harmonize it, if you don't standardize it, it's very difficult.
Thank you so much, Demetria. What would be your commentary when you see this result?
No, yeah, I mean, first, I am glad that I didn't need to answer that, because I have mixed feelings. But I think that all of the 4 items listed there are important. I fully agree with the most answered answer, the last one, that the process is critical. But in my opinion, leadership and competencies, skills, and finance, they are important enablers for the process to be implemented. For me, it's hard to think that to harmonize the organizational process can be done without an appropriate leadership support and without FP&A skills supporting that. But again, I agree that the process goes first. Technology, for sure, it's extremely important. As I said before, probably if you need to sort it, it's probably the last that I would pick. But I also agree that leadership and skills are relevant as enablers for a solid process.
Excellent, thank you for this commentary. Oliver, I would like also to hear your view on this. Obviously, for you as a technology leader, technology provider, how do you look at those companies that didn't harmonize the organizational processes but start to implement technology? So what's your commentary on this particular vote?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting. I mean, obviously, I agree with everything that's gone first. You need to have a good process in mind, but I don't necessarily think that it has to be an organization, complete picture of the whole organization in order to progress with, say, a transformational project that FP&A could become. However, having said that, I do kind of feel that they're all sort of equally important. If you don't have any one of those things, you're definitely going to have a problem. And clearly, you think about the process. It starts with, so you think about an FP&A solution. It starts with, what's the process? What's the thing we're trying to solve? What is it that's going to help solve it? Do we have the support internally to go ahead with this? And then kind of maybe finally on neck and neck with the support, do we have the right people to be able to execute on this for us? So it's very interesting, and I reckon we could probably have an hour's conversation about which the order and so on.
Thank you so much. Excellent commentaries, and thank you to all of you who voted. I close the results, and we are moving on. The next one, when we look at our integrated FP&A matrix, is about integrating people and integrating also the models. In reality, when we are talking about integrating processes, many FP&A directors say that it all should start from identification of drivers, creating the driver-based model, taking into consideration of integrated view of 3 financial statements, and then, of course, integrated processes. Now it's time for us to look at 2 aspects of this. We will look at integrated people and driver-based model. And Demetria is here, finance director at Heisen, to talk about his experience and his interesting case study, one of the biggest in South America, IPO, and how integrated people from FP&A and integrated models help to be for this IPO to be one of the most successful. Thank you, Demetria. You're welcome.
Perfect, Larissa. Thank you so very much. So once again, thank you very much for you to join. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So as Larissa said, during the last slide and the next slides, I'll be sharing with you a little bit of a history that I'm really proud. It's the Heisen's IPO. We have recently listed the company in Brazil's stock exchange. It was one of the largest deals ever in Brazil. And I was invited circa 1 year ago to lead the process, the project, and this IPO. So I'll be sharing with you a little bit. So the way that my presentation is built, I'll be briefly sharing what's Heisen for those of you that don't know the company. And then I'm gonna go deep, specifically on the valuation and how FP&A brought value on this transaction. And then I'll give you just a quick highlight on the deal itself. So first things first, Heisen's a joint venture. It was created 10 years ago. One of the largest companies in Brazil. It's a joint venture between Cosan, which is a private company in Brazil, one of the largest groups that we have here in Brazil, and Shell. So it's an integrated energy company, renewable energy company, that, as we're gonna share on the next slide, goes from soil to consumer. So it's a very complex business, and you're gonna see on the next slide. I'm not gonna go into all the details and all the figures that you're gonna see on this slide, but we have 4 business segments: renewables, sugar, marketing and services, proximity and retail. All of them large, all of them global scale. One of the challenges that we had was to explain this company to the market, especially to international investors that were not familiar with Heisen's history and Heisen business. So on the next slide, given that we have already a big complexity on the system, but on top of that, the process of an IPO, as some of you probably are familiar to, it's not easy as well, because the strategy discussion happens between the company and the investors, the buy side. But when you're talking about valuation, the company does not normally discuss valuation straight to the investors. This discussion happens between the sell side of the bank and the investors. So you need to have a full education from your company about its valuation so that the sell side can discuss with the investors. So on the investor's perspective, they're gonna have a bunch of information from the strategy from the company and figures, numbers coming from the sell side. And it's really important for all of that to match. So a healthy, a successful IPO must have a very solid connection between your valuation, so all the operational and business drivers, and with the strategy. So that's a key challenge, something that we anticipated in the beginning of the process. So moving to the next slide, something that we tried to do since the beginning of the project was to do that, to integrate strategy, operational with the business. So from the repositioning, defining the company as a renewable energy global player, defining our growth pillars and how we would allocate the use of proceeds, to the operational level involving the whole company, because we have a lot of a bunch of drivers that needs to be shown to the market. And one discussion that you don't want to have with the buy side or with the sell side, it's about your modeling. What's important is to have a discussion on the assumptions. but the model needs to be really robust. And we managed to create a model since the beginning of the project, linking all these three pillars: strategy, business, and operations. And this model brought all the financial statements of those business segments that I shared with you a while ago. And then with those financial statements, we got the discounted cash flow, we got the EV, and we got the equity value with a very solid history. So on the next slide, I briefly share the 3 steps that we used to prepare this proprietary model that we use it to discuss with the sell side and support all the discussions with the buy side. So first was a preparation. We ran important benchmarks with other companies, with comparable companies on a global level and domestic level. We defined the relevant projects to be considered. You need to focus which are the projects that you're going to explain to the market, what's your growth pillars, and then we define our model structure. The second phase was the development, to build a robust and flexible model. We need to have a model that could run sensitivities, that we could discuss the assumptions with the market. And after extensive internal discussions, we built this solid equity stories, and we prepared all the arguments to support our projections. And then we deployed. So the deployment was several interactions with the research analysts, with the sell side of the banks. So for that, we need to have this model extremely well prepared, the assumptions very well defined, and in a manner that we could defend it. And during the whole process, during the roadshow and previous interactions with the sell side and buy side, we always had this model on our hands and with the sell side. So in terms of the process, it was critical for our success. But on the next slide, something that was a key enabler for this process, this model to be put in place was people. People's critical. So I list here 6 skills that you need to have on a team for a successful FP&A department, for a successful IPO, as were our case. So when I started to prepare to create the team that would work on this journey, I split the hard and soft skills that I was looking for. So in terms of the hard skills, definitely you need to have people with knowledge, with accounting and performance knowledge. When you're talking about valuation, you're talking about hard finance, you're talking about a lot of details of finance that you need to have this knowledge on your team. The second one is to manage data, to manage analytical tools. Our system was created using Excel and Power BI, and it's a lot of data. You can imagine a company of this side, the quantity of data that we need to compile, consolidate, so we can run our 10-year projections. The third hard skill, it's a grasp on business strategy and markets. In my opinion, it's critical for every FP&A professional, not only to know the finance, but to know the business, the market you are inserted in. And in terms of soft skills, it's also important for you to have strategic and critical thinking, to think out of the box all the time, to have communication skills. As I said, there are a lot of interactions with the banks, a lot of interactions with the buy side. So it's important that you have a team that can manage to explain your model, explain your evaluation to the market. And last, innovation and collaboration. You're talking about integration. So you're talking about create something new, to create something together with other parts of your company. So that being said, on the next slide, I summarized a little bit a pyramid that for me was critical for the success of this journey. So FP&A was critical, people and process, as I said. So a dedicated, high quality team in terms of process, a solid integrated planning, fast access to reliable data, and flexible and accurate model, as I have just shared. So very briefly, just to share the outcome of this project. Obviously, it was a huge journey, huge project, but as you can see on the next slide, when we started the journey, Heisen was a company perceived by the market as $8 billion pre-money company, and we priced it as $13 billion, which was an initial value that we understood was fair to trade this company. So there was no magic here. It was a lot of work convincing the market about our growth plans, about our strategy. So, and the model was critical for that. And the result you can see on the next slide. So it was one of the largest IPOs on Brazil's history. Actually, it was 5th largest. It was the largest IPO of an energy company in Latin America, and we managed to have an incredible success with international investors in Brazil with this $1.3 billion offer. So my last slide, next slide, I'll be sharing, it's just a quick summary of the 3 items that I believe are golden rules or the key factors for the success. The first one, as I said, robust and flexible. Flexible for me is key here, model and systems. Second one, integration. You can have the best models, best systems. Without integration, you're gonna have just a good model showing you bad figures. So you need to have all the data of the company really well organized, and you need to have an alignment. Communication among the whole company needs to work properly. And the third one, as I said, right people with the right skills. So guys, thank you so very much. With that, I conclude my presentation, and I'm more than glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Demetrio, what a great presentation, excellent case study, and congratulations on your success. And amazing to see how FP&A people move into this strategic level, so helping with IPO. I would like to ask our panelists to switch on the cameras, please, and just quick commentaries or questions, a short discussion before we move on. Adam?
Yes, thanks. I mean, that was really good to hear your journey. I mean, from my questions, I'll be curious to see when you created the model, what kind of drivers you're looking at? What were the core drivers that helped you to review the valuation of the company?
No, that's a great question, Adam. Thank you for that. I mean, on our business, there are important discussions on prices. So we are into gas, ethanol, gasoline, sugar, and several other products of energy. So one of the most important discussions in terms of drivers were prices. And all of those items that I shared are commodities. So although on our specific case, we try, to have special products to special niches, we are exposed to commodities to the market. So one important discussion that was really clear in our models are related to which assumptions in terms of prices, market prices, and which prices we could have on the next years. So we had a very robust discussion and modeling on prices, volume as well. So not only market volume, but the volumes that we could capture. And as I said, what we tried and achieved was to not having the discussions on how you do the calculation on your modeling. It needs to be a very easy model for anyone that open it, understand the logics. The discussions need to be on assumptions, which are good discussions, because you can have your view on sugar prices. Other banks can have their own view, but if you have your discussions on assumptions, that's a rich discussion. So what was really important for us to make sure that on our model, all the drivers were clear, which assumptions we use and why we have used it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much. Oliver, your commentaries, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dimitri, for such an insightful presentation. I suppose listening to the type of thing that you got up to, and the the vastness, the broad capability the model offers, especially with the insight that Adam's line of question just brought up. I was wondering, how long did it take to develop the model? Did you already have a starting point? What was your approach to that? Because it sounds like quite a serious bit of kit there.
No, it's a great question, Oliver. Thank you for that. Actually, I mean, during the project, we had several work streams. The modeling was one of them. And luckily, we have pre-existing models already prepared, because Shell and Cosan are already listed, so both of them have discussions with the market, with buy side and sell side, so they have their own model. We use it to have our own FP&A model. So what we've done was to take all of those modules and prepare a proprietary evaluation model. So all in, we're talking about 4 months for you to have this solid proprietary database and modeling. But again, considering that we have already had a pre-existing model, and a hard part that we faced was the definition on the drivers, on the assumptions. Why we're using this market price, why you're considering this market growth. So part of our model was to establish on a very clear way what was the drivers and why we're using that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your commentaries. Excellent presentation. Again, congratulations, Demetrio. And now this is the timing for us to look at the next polling question and to hear from our participants. So it's all about your model, and it's all about the systems that you use. We really would like to understand what is happening in your companies. I'm launching the poll, and I would like to ask you to start voting straight away. How would you describe your planning tools and models? The first option is non-existent. The second one is static model, means not driver-based, and it's in Excel as well. Or you have driver-based model in Excel. This is the third option. The fourth option is static model, not driver-based, in a dedicated planning system. Or the final one, driver-based model in a dedicated planning system. So the best of all. If you can continue to vote, please choose one of those, which is the best description of your planning process. Just a few seconds, and we are closing the poll, and we are sharing the results with everyone. So those are the results. Wonderful. So everyone has the model, and at least in Excel. A static model in Excel, 18%. Driver-based model in Excel, 52%. Great result. 15% implemented their static model in system, and driver-based model in dedicated planning system, 15% of our participants. I would like to ask Demetrio to quickly comment on this.
Sure. It does not surprise me. I would say that in our case, we are probably something hybrid between item 3 and 5. So we have dedicated planning system, but for the whole integration, we use a lot of Power BI and Excel. As I said, I think that there are pros and cons. Excel obviously give you a lot of flexibility. However, the question about how robust it is, it's big, right? I mean, obviously the best case scenario is probably to have a dedicated planning integrated system with flexibility for you to run sensitivities, to take fast decisions. But for me, it's not a surprise to see that there are a lot of companies out there with a lot of Excel going on and working. So I guess the next steps, how to move that to integrated planning systems.
Thank you, Demetrio. Adam, your commentary, please.
Yeah, look, I think I'll be fully aligned with with Demetrius. I mean, We're definitely using more and more planning systems, but Excel is a flexible tool that when you want to do some quick simulations and quick models, that's where you start. I think the art is to know where, when to switch.
Excellent, thank you so much. And finally, what would be your commentary, Oliver?
70% of people are using Excel in 2021. I mean, don't get me started, Larissa. I'll be off on one. I mean, this is, a personal productivity tool used to make business critical decisions about the future health of our organization. And we're still, Excel's embedded. When we looked at that first question, I think we had a few people saying it's fully integrated. Yeah, we got integration between finance and strategy, things like that. But when you really put that with this dimension of using a personal productivity tool, open to human error, very difficult to track, silo based, and this, it just shows that there's lots of opportunity to increase trust, to increase agility, to edge towards that holistic process. And anybody who's still working with Excel for those types of things, rest assured there is technology out there that can drastically improve your lives.
Thank you so much for this commentary. From my side, I would like to look at positive movement. So 67% using driver-based model. Okay, majority of this in Excel, but I remember 3 to 5 years ago, it was maybe only around 20%. And we are talking about fully driver-based model. So the things definitely changing. But I agree with you that the systems are going to give a lot of opportunities in the future. So I'm hiding the results, and this is the time to look at the next presentation, at the next aspect, at the next dimension of integrated FP&A. So the next presentation will be around this integrated platform. We already looked at integrated processes, integrated people, driver-based models, and let us look at what integrated platform can give us. Oliver, who is head of FP&A Solution Consulting at Unit 4, is going to share with us insights on how technology can help to unify the planning processes. So it's your turn, your stage, Oliver. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Larissa. I hope I didn't come across as too lectury on the previous question. It's just, as I'm sure we all are, very passionate about this. So thank you for the introduction, Larissa. So yeah, let's go in with the technology side of things. We've seen some really good examples today. We've seen some interesting ideas around, I guess, some of the issues that are related to, a disconnected planning process. And here it is on the screen, that word disconnected. I think also we kind of delved in some of the benefits of a connected, more harmonized, more unified process. So I just wanted to start off with a brief sort of definition of terms in some sense. What does this word actually mean in the context of planning? What we certainly covered a lot, probably touched on some of this stuff that I'm about to mention, but just taking a step back, we can be disconnected in a number of facets. So we can be disconnected as people, disconnected from each other. We can be disconnected from the organization, so for whole departments, disconnected from each other. Different departments have different perspectives on the same data sets, but we're silo-based, we're disconnected. We can be disconnected from the data, so the data itself can also be disconnected. I'll explain that as we go through. And maybe finally, from a platform or a technology perspective, we can also be disconnected. So disconnection can creep in there in a number of ways, and I wanted to spend my brief time speaking with you today about the part that technology plays in unifying the planning process, I suppose, from all of these perspectives. So let's take a moment to dig into a few of these areas, a few of these ideas, and unfortunately, I don't have enough time to cover absolutely everything. Let's just pick up a couple of points. I want to start off talking about people. As we've seen, people mindset is a huge part of all of this. But a unified process, even if we define the process, requires people to work with each other in order to be successful. So in the slide in front of us, we've got an example of a workflow process. So this is people collaborating, it's ownership, participation, accountability, all of those good words. This is all about being part of a centrally managed workflow that allows us to track, where we are in the process, obviously. And then the benefits of that, the reason we want to do that is that gives us more visibility into the process and the results itself. Workflow in general is much more than just making sure that we're getting the right things done in the right way by the right people at the right time. In the example in front of us, we focus on this. We're looking at a workflow process that mirrors the real world process itself. So we've got top-down target setting followed by some bottom-up opinion collecting, so budget collecting, top-down and bottom-up, kind of reflecting the diagram that Larissa's been using a bit today. So, this is just an example, but I think it's important to understand a little bit about it. So the top-down process itself, the first thing is setting the target in this example. This has to be closely aligned to the strategy of the organization. Be dealing with things like, where do we want to be as an organization? How much money do we want to make? How are we going to control our costs more effectively? What activities do we want to execute in order to get to where we want to be? Things like that. And if our process isn't unified, how can we expect the execution of that? The monitoring of those activities and indeed their outcomes to go well? I think we can all agree we can't expect them to go well at all. So still staying with this, let's have a look at the few steps up at the top. So there's 5 top-down tasks in this. There's the target setting, where the relevant user sets the target. Where do we want to be? Talk more about this in a moment. This goal, this target, is then allocated throughout the organization. So over regions, throughout the organization in this case, answers the question of where. Then over products or services, activities, so it's products in this example. So that's answering the question of what. Also across time, so months it talks about here. So this is when. And then finally, do we have the resources to deliver the target that has been set, answering, I suppose, the final question of who. So you can see we're really approaching this from a number of different perspectives, and a unified process requires us to allow multiple users to have their opinions on that same data set from all of those different perspectives. And that can only be achieved if the process is unified, if the data is unified. All of that data, all of that information in one single, secure, centralized solution. It needs to support ease of use. It needs to be seamlessly accessible, but it still needs to offer, robust security. In order to make good decisions, we need not just the people to be connected and unified, but the process as a whole. It's multifaceted. Decisions made in one area need to be accessible to every relevant user in every other area. The moment a decision is made, we can use that knowledge, we can use that insight to see how another area of the organization is going to be affected or is affected. An example, we catch a cold in one department, we know there's going to be sneezes in another. To sum up what I'm talking about here, this is really integrated continuous planning. And you can see that technology can be a great facilitator of this. But remember that facilitator word there. Let's follow the process a little bit. Let's go into the first task. So on the next slide, we'll see an example of this high-level activity, this target setting task. The solution can present all of the information that's required at this high level to support that connected decision making. Not only that, but the information that's displayed, and I think this is a key point here, in this example is coming from all over the organization. Firstly, across the top, we've got access to some high level details around performance over time, over the last couple of years. Indicators obviously highlights really quickly, really easily, important details, areas that we need to focus on, variance, growth, stuff like that. And straight away, due to the fact that the solution is unified across time, it means we're able to see any areas of concern. This is just time I'm talking about, and we can address that in our target setting. Of course, we've then got the rich graphical content that really brings that information to life. We can see any issues pretty quickly. But let me talk about this graphical content, the stuff around the outside here. So here we're looking at KPIs, metrics, details from around the organization, from operations, for example, things like stock capacity, market share, sales rep performance, this can be all sorts of different things, warehouse metrics, other departmental budgets. Now the metrics in this case are all related to the task in hand, but this is basically case in point. that a unified process offers much more insight to support, much more realistic connected decision making, not working just in my silo. If we then bring up back the idea of people into all of this, you'll see towards the bottom of the screen, there's a chance for the users to add some commentary. So all that commentary is held centrally with the data, and it's sentiment, it's humans, expressing ideas, using language, communicating as humans. Okay, big deal, we're communicating, but sharing this commentary with the user community makes sure that we're all on the same page, we're all facing the same direction. Really reducing that gap between strategy and execution through that unified process. And this is a big part of the topic we're talking about. Bring everything together, make it available, make it easy to consume, ensure that we're all working together, we're all working as a unified team. Let's spend a moment then talking about the idea of connecting or unifying not just people, but the organization as a whole, so the process, the technology. On the next slide, we're going to see the next stage in the task list. So just quickly jump through a couple of these ideas. So what I wanted to bring up here is this idea of making decisions. We can't make effective decisions without having reliable output at our fingertips. And notice here I'm talking about people a lot. Technology is just the vehicle, it's just the facilitator. Technology supports that collaboration. But the unification is more than just working with each other. It combines all of these things, the organization, the process, the people as a whole. So in this slide, the target's been set, and we're working out how we're going to deliver that target across the regions. If we focus on just one of the regions, bottom left here, we can see a few things: how we performed last year, the target that we're working towards next year. But we've also got some extra details. We've got the current workforce details. Who's going to be delivering that target? Again, the point here is that if I make decisions based on my siloed perspective of how much money do I want to make, for example, in this case, how can I make sure I'm in line with that organizational strategy? How can I make sure that my decisions are going to be supported? So we've got an example of, I'd say, sort of two things here: constraint-based planning and scenario or simulations. So just to quickly have a look at some of the numbers, we can see in this region we want to make 8.5 million. And because we're working with that connected, unified model, I can see the current workforce, what they're capable of. I'm making financial decisions, but based on that operational data. Further to this, I can perform some analysis, I can pull some levers. How hard has the workforce got to work? What does the team need to look like? How many resources do I need? Is that target achievable? And if it is, at what cost? Things like this. Now, all of these questions can actually be answered at runtime. So that leads to that integrated scenario planning, at least to some degree, as I was saying, simulations. So technology, you can see, plays its part in all of this. We're able to make much better judgments if we're connected, if we understand the effect our decisions make on other areas of the organization. So with an eye on time, we're sort of swiftly running out. So there's so many more things that I could touch on today. The idea of the storytelling side of things, the idea of again more scenario capabilities, and so on. But let's just jump to my final slide here, because I think the question that we're all faced after sitting through today is, this is big. Where do I start with this mammoth task? How do I get to this holy grail? And I think the best tip that I could give here is, because these FP&A technologies are flexible, yet offer the right balance of rigidity and control, you have the benefit of, I don't need to know my whole organization's processes. I need to have an idea, but let's start somewhere. Let's go for that low hanging fruit. Let's turn a phase 1 and start receiving some value out of this with a general idea of where we're going to go. And that iterative process allows or ensures that the technology and the offering stays up to date with the shape, the size of the organization. You can always go back and tweak as you continue to progress. It's a big topic. That starts somewhere bit. Looks like I'm out of time, slightly over, so apologies for whittering on. But hopefully I've got the points across here about technology being the vehicle. Thank you so much for your time, for listening to my presentation. Let me open up to the other participants for a chat or any comments.
Oliver, thank you so much. Great and passionate presentation about the role of technology. I would like to ask our panelists to switch on the cameras and to do very, very quick commentaries on the role of technology from their point of view. So Adam, Demetrios, can you switch on as well?
Thanks for the presentation. It was very, very interesting. I mean, you see that, especially that doing on-the-fly simulations, it's always something that we all kind of have in mind, and some of us already do. I mean, one question maybe about the agility, right? Because one reason why people use Excel is because it's flexible, right? So how flexible is to establish such a solution? How long it takes, if you can say, especially for like some quick draft models?
Yeah, well, so let's talk about the idea of the simulation, the scenario planning with that. So if you think about that process in Excel, you spend a lot of time copying spreadsheets, checking formulas. You want to insert a new product, a new service. How many worksheets have I got to do that in? Have I copied the formulas down across? Human error, human error, human error. Can I trust the data on which I'm based in the future? Whereas these solutions have these capabilities that a click of a button, a brand new simulation scenario version, whatever you want to call it, not only appears, but is also copied from, say, the base version or latest forecast, latest estimate. And you can now change the drivers and the underlying details within that scenario independently to any other. So with that capability of that flexibility that's built in, you simply speed up and release a lot of time being able to swip that, that triangle of 80% of my time playing with spreadsheets, 20% of my time doing work on his head. So, but there's loads more to talk about there, but that's the shortest answer I could give.
Thank you so much, Demetrio.
No, perfect, Oliver. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think that my question for you actually, it's in terms of the timing, right? Just to take a little bit of your experience to understand how long for a company would take to implement a solid model, assuming that it has a reasonable environment in terms of process, but with the right people. How long do you think it's this journey?
This is the piece of string question. Because if you think about what FP&A actually means, it's a deep, broad, big topic, and it never ends. It never ends. It's constantly changing. Our requirements update. COVID comes along. Things happen. So an FP&A project, I wonder if they ever really end, if you see what I mean. Whereas what you can do is at least start on that journey, like I was saying, start somewhere. And you might find that each individual phase could take between, depending on what it is, 10 days to, I don't know, 30 days, something like that. As well as, there's lots of technologies offer out-of-the-box content for fast starts, for, why reinvent the wheel, reuse some of the capabilities. So I don't think it's possible to answer how long does it take to implement a full FP&A solution, but because it's a different thing to different people. But certainly, split it up into phases, and because it's accessible software, typically the business can start actually managing and maintaining that themselves. I know that's a vague answer, but I feel it's a vague topic. Does that make some sense?
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's never-ending topic, and we discussed this when we prepared for this meeting, that it's not enough, only 90 minutes, but we try our best. And this is the timing now for the last polling question before we start Q&A session. And just a quick reminder, please continue to send your questions to us. And if we don't have time to answer all of them, we will answer by email. So the next polling question will be opened in a moment, and it's all about how flexible is your decision-making process at the moment. So I'm launching the poll. You will see it in a moment, and please start voting very, very quickly. Can you make instant decisions and deploy them as a result of real-time insight today? So what is your decision-making process? And the answer is yes or no. I'm restricted to looking at multiple sources of data, or I think this is unrealistic reality to make instant decisions that are deploying analytics and insights. So please continue to vote. Just a few seconds, and we are closing the poll and sharing interesting results here. Amazing. So 11% of you say yes, it's possible for us to make instant decisions that are based on real-time insights. 70% no because of the restrictions, and 19% think that it's not realistic and not achievable. And because of the timing, I will ask only you, Oliver, to comment on this very, very quickly.
Very quickly. It's always a challenge, Larissa.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know, I was surprised. I was expecting people to be more confident in this, but I think this is kind of what I was expecting. Yeah, you know, that 70% of organizations using effectively disparate siloed solution of Excel, it doesn't surprise me. You know, how many organizations are truly connecting finance to, say, HR, to operations, to whatever it may be? So it certainly doesn't surprise me. I don't think it's a call for concern, and I don't think it's unrealistic to be able to get there. I think that the journey seems daunting, but like I say, if you start somewhere, get some quick wins, it's surprising how quickly you get well on the way to being able to look at the organization holistically. You know, build out, build up, build down. It's surprising how quickly you can get quite a lot of value out of these integrated solutions for decision making. That's the end of my answer, I think.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your answer, and thank you for all of those votes. I'm hiding the results, and let us move on. Once again, this is the time for conclusions and recommendations. Key takeaways from all our panelists. I would like to ask you to switch on your cameras. And 30 seconds key takeaways, something that you would like our participants to remember. Let us start from you, Adam.
I would say that from my side, integrated business planning or integrated FP&A is a journey, right? And we need to learn as we go. I think the important thing is to explore, is to check what works, is to adapt, look at the processes. Don't forget about data and technology, of course. Yeah, and move as you go. And it's a dynamic world, so we need to adapt.
Excellent, thank you, Adam. Demetrio, your 30 seconds.
No, perfect. I think that I'm gonna repeat myself and repeat what Adam has just said. It's a journey for sure. Integration is critical for decision making, for good decision making, and as we showed during this presentation, right, it's something that involves process, people, and technology. You cannot, you know, forget all of them are different levels in terms of timing to implement them, but all of them are pillars to a solid integration on a company.
Thank you, Demetria. And Oliver, you're the last with your 30 seconds.
So much to say, so little time. I think the fundamental message, if I can just really cut to exactly what I feel, is get rid of Excel from a business critical, connected planning perspective. Use the right tool for the right job. Excel may be part of it, but when it comes to really connecting your organization, and yeah, technology is a piece of the puzzle, but that's the bit I'm interested in. There's so much value in connecting the organization from all of these perspectives that carrying on in Excel, how long until somebody actually makes a mistake? You know, how long until something serious happens? So that would be my advice is, you know, make that journey, take the first step, start looking into solutions.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, everyone. Great conclusions. Just a quick reminder from my side, this is our definition of integrated FP&A. The subject is very wide. It's not only implementing the system, it's about harmonizing both vertically and horizontally your planning processes, and there are 3 of them. And today we looked at a number of those techniques. Now this is the time for Q&A session. I would like to ask participants to continue to send your questions, because even if we don't have enough time to answer those that we have, we will get to you through email. And the first question is to you, Adam. Actually, a very interesting one. Adam, thank you for excellent presentation, sharing the story of your company. You said that everything should start from the process. But in our company, in order to change the process, it will take a lot of time. can we do this in parallel, implementing the system and changing the process in order to achieve the integration quicker? What would be your answer?
Look, I think we never have a perfect solution, right? I think in many large organizations, and I think all of us can think of some. I mean, I think we're far from having everything ideally harmonized, right? So, and I think it's good to start on a smaller scale. This is what we did. We took some pilots, we took some geography, some markets, we tried there. Is it all perfectly aligned? It's not, and I think it will never be. But you know, you try how the integration work, right? So how people can work together, how the communication checks, and it's also use some sort of confirmation before you come with the technology. That would be at least my view. I mean, of course, you can do things in parallel, but I think it's about the right balance of you know, not engaging too fast, but also not engaging too late, right? So is to feel the right moment.
Excellent. Excellent answer, Adam. Thank you so much for this. Dimitri, another interesting question to you. You were talking about integrated model that your FP&A team provided for valuation for this IPO. How to deal with the fact that many drivers are hidden, that they appear and disappear, that they're internal and external, and they're changing probably quicker than we can realize. So how you took this into consideration in your model?
That's a great question. Actually, that's why you need a flexible model. So you can run sensitivities. So at the end of the day, you're going to run scenarios, best cases, worst cases, base case scenarios. So, and that's for me, rich discussion. The discussions on the assumption, it's very rich because you can have different opinions, even in WACC, right, in this discount rate, you can have different views for the same company. I mean, each bank will have a different view depending on the segment, the company. So that's why it's important for you to have a solid, actually a robust and flexible model. So you can run sensitivities, establish scenarios, understand on stress cases where your evaluation will be, on best cases where it will be, and the discussion with the market will be on what's reasonable, what's a base case scenario. So the key for me, it's about print sensitivities and having flexible models to do so.
Excellent. Thank you, Demetrio. Oliver, you are the next. And the question is about Excel and FP&A systems. Obviously, many are disappointed that they still have to run Excel models, especially for their planning processes. Yeah. But one of the reasons that identified by our participants is that unwillingness of top management to invest in modern solutions. You know, somehow still working with systems that are already outdated and not flexible. And this is the reason why there are so many Excel bridges. From your experience working with so many organizations around the globe and with so many different systems, what would be your advice how FP&A people can convince top management to invest?
Well, I'm hoping there's no top management on this call, but it's something that we see.
Top management.
So it's something that we see quite often. Is, you know, you'd speak to a certain level of person. No, there is no problem. You know, they don't necessarily know that half the team's staying up till 3 o'clock every morning on, you know, the week of month close or what have you. That there is no problem. But there is, you know, the team on the ground feels there is. So it's a case of really a business case, you know, business justification. It's all about the value that they would get from a connected solution. So connected from transaction through to disclosure, and making them see that it's not just that we're staying up till 3 in the morning. The problems are much more than that. It's about trust in data. It's about the examples of organizations going under because of Excel errors. So it's about finding the right way into that level of the organization, building a business case, setting the compelling events. And of course, I'm not saying it's easy, but it is. It's like you can't do it by yourself. You need to build up a critical mass and amplify that issue up to those levels to make sure you're heard, because carrying on in this way, so many organizations, wrong decisions because of incorrect data, no matter how much you audit your spreadsheets. So it's a case of you need to internally amplify that. Of course, I'd love to speak to all of them and get involved in their fights with them, but a business case justification is probably quite a good way. Turn it into quantifiable results. If we do this, we will save this, or we will make this. That's always a good way of doing it.
Oliver, thank you. Excellent answer. The last question is to all of you. The same question, but different answers from your experience. The question is about the first steps in the integration. Our company is absolutely not integrated. It's a traditional company that still use a lot of Excel, traditional budgeting process, and so on and so forth. What would be your top 2 or 3 steps that you would recommend to our company? Very practical steps. So what would be those 2 or 3 steps? Very quickly, we will start from you, Adam. Where would you start?
Yeah, sorry. Well, I think we discussed this a few times. I think we should start in identifying what are the core changes that we need, right? And very often we see it could be process related, it could be catalyzed by some business change, which is happening, could be an opportunity, could be operating in the market, and I think that should become a driver for the change, right? And based on that, you pick your battles, right? You see what is the place where you should invest. Is it in technology? Is it upscaling people? Is the process? Most probably is all of them, right? But yeah, I think it's always to link it with the business driver, with what is the core problem to solve there. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Adam. Excellent first step. Dimetrio, you can build on this or propose yours, please.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Larissa. And the person asked 2 priorities. Actually, in my opinion, there are 2 priorities. The first one is people. I think that the first step for change is to have people with experience. So if I'm on a company that doesn't have a lot of expertise on integration on FP&A, the first thing, in my opinion, is to have the right people to support a transition. The second one, probably it goes together, is to have a diagnosis, a scenario where you are and where you want to go to. So probably you're going to have to hire a consulting company that will support you on integration. There are a lot of very good cases out there. There are a lot of good benchmarks that shows journeys. I mean, Adam has just showed how Philip Morris, a international giant, is moving on this type of journey. There's other companies there that had this type of experience, and they're consulting with a lot of experience on this journey. So I would say people and benchmark of where you are and where you what we want to achieve.
Excellent, thank you, Dimitri. And Oliver, the step 1 or 2 that you would recommend?
Yeah, well, I think I'll probably build on what's been said so far, because I completely agree with that. It's not a single thing, but from a technology point of view, it's incredibly important not just to think about the problem that you're solving today. So let's say that you go, okay, well, this is a real issue. We're going to focus on this. You need to make sure that the technology that you're selecting will solve that problem, but will also solve the problems you have tomorrow, the next day, and so on and so forth. So you're future-proofing yourself. It's a tricky one, because you don't want to turn it into a beauty parade. What looks nicer? You really need to do due diligence. Is it easy to use? Will it really do all of the connective side of things? Can I make decisions on the fly? So you need to kind of start looking at technologies, think about, is there any relationship between existing technologies that I have at the moment and connectivity and things like that. It's not an easy question to answer in a short while, but I think that's off the top of my head, that's my reaction.
Excellent insights, everyone. And I think we managed really well for this 90 minutes. Such amazing subject. and not possible, as we already discussed, to do this in 90 minutes, but you gave practical examples, and we see a lot of positive feedback from our participants. Just a few more slides before we say bye-bye, but please stay with us, participants. We would like to hear your feedback. There will be a survey when we close this webinar. Our upcoming meetings, there will be a FP&A Trends webinar on digital transformations, on fostering data-driven culture, October 12th. There will be Digital Central European FP&A Board. It would be wonderful to see you. Again, about transformation of controlling an FP&A function. Before we say bye-bye, we would like to say thank you so much to our sponsor for today, Unit 4 Company. Thank you for supporting us. Actually, for London FP&A Circle, you were the only sponsor from the beginning, so we started this together. Thank you so much. I also would like to say thank you so much to our fantastic panel, Demetrio, Oliver, Adam, great presentations, great insights. Thank you so much to all our participants. Thank you for being with us, sending your questions. Please continue to reach out to us. Please continue to connect. If you have interesting innovations, case studies, or questions, you know how to find us. And finally, please stay in touch with FP&A Trends Group. There are so many different means how you can do this. And finally, we will start traveling again at the beginning of next year. I hope to see so many of you next year. And by the way, we're even planning to open a chapter in Brazil, Demetrio. So hopefully we'll see each other. And definitely in London and definitely in Switzerland. So see you very soon. Stay safe. And stay excited about this incredible journey, which is called FP&A. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey.